Hello, New York. Welcome to all of the online viewers. I'm so happy to be here. This is such an important topic, and it really fits very nicely with the theme of the conference. It's about time for two reasons. First of all, because we're about to talk about how the time server functionality of the BSV blockchain is going to be improving compliance in the gambling industry space. And also because it's about time that the online gambling industry starts to take advantage of BSV blockchain tech. I know Calvin's been saying this for a long time now, and we are ready for you. We have solutions that are ready today, and this is what we are going to talk about. So thank you again. And I wanted to start off by having our three panelists introduce themselves, the company that they work for, and how their company works at the intersection of blockchain and compliance. So I will start with you, Peter.
Thank you, Becky, and hello, New York. Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Beveridge-Clayton. I am the CTO and co-founder of the company called Company, or Company with a K is the short form. Company operates a unique real-time network to commercial registers and other authoritative sources worldwide, which provide access to audit-proof company data for business verification and KYB, which sounds great, but it's clearly a soundbite. What does that really mean? In a nutshell, we provide a single point of access to global official company register source data and documents for any industry, regulated or not, that need to do KYC, AML, UBO, PEP sanctions checks, etc., be that on suppliers, partners, vendors, customers, advertisers, whoever it is, without having to worry about using multiple APIs because you're talking to 20 different countries, different payment methods, different languages, all that stuff. We've taken care of all of that, and we've given one source access to it. Now, in terms of blockchain and compliance, there's basically three aspects which we are seeking to address here, which have different relevances across different industries, but are interrelated. We call them Invoke, Digest, and Chronicle. Now, Invoke is the biggest, but quite possibly the simplest to actually explain. It's really essentially putting our API on chain. Why would we do that? So that native chain industries and businesses can do onboarding checks, transaction checks, including the KYB, AML, including discovery of source of funds and this sort of thing, all in real time without actually leaving the on-chain infrastructure. They can do all that, and they don't have to break out, use our JSON API. The second part, which is called Digest, is actually all around associating the results of those checks to another on-chain entity. So that could be a wallet would be typical. So you can do a check on a wallet and you can associate that check with that wallet. So essentially it's identifying people, but identifying them in a way that doesn't necessarily publicly identify them, but identifies them enough for any regulatory requirements. And the last, and actually the easiest, is what we call Chronicle. And that's simply, blockchain provides a fantastic, and I dare say an ideal way of giving an audit chain of proof of what is claimed to have happened actually did. So what we do is we use this to record the interactions with our API that our customers do. So that if they are then questioned, prove that you did this check, they can simply go to the API, go to the chain and say, here you go, that transaction represents a check. It's time-stamped, it's immutable, it's fixed in time, it's fixed in content. You literally cannot argue with it. And that's what we do.
Very good. Paul, please.
Thank you. So I'm Paul Foster. Hello, New York, and thank you very much, Becky. So I run a company called Crucial Compliance that offers compliance consultancy, software, and services across the iGaming industry internationally. And one of the key areas we've been working on is about understanding gambling-related harm and actually trying to measure it and test for it, and then interact with people and reduce it. And one of the things we've created is a Crucial Player Protection System, which runs on machine learning. It's got in-depth algorithms. And what we do is we track a player's behavior over time, and then we log key events in their play. And that key event then is time-stamped, and we keep it in our system. But as we move on into the new world, we want that to be timestamped forever. And that's why we're starting working with nChain And what we're trying to do is create an irrefutable log of all customer interactions and date stamps, so that over time we can really build up a good picture of player behavior and be able to interact at the right time.
It's all about the timestamp server. Okay, Nick, please.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Hello, New York. Thank you, Becky. Yeah, I'm Nick Hill. I've been involved in the online gaming space for the past 20 years. And, yeah, I've, over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, started to get more and more involved with blockchain technology. I created my own company, Premier Chain, and now I work very, very closely with nChain, and I'm looking at ways to take nChain and the Kensei platform into the iGaming vertical. So yeah, basically I'm bringing the iGaming expertise and driving notarization on the Kensei platform into the vertical, basically.
Very good. Very good, Nick. I know you're so excited about Kensei, and I would like for you to just provide a bit of an overview of the responsible gambling landscape right now in the iGaming industry. It's a super hot topic, very hot topic, lots of pain points right now. Can you just lay the groundwork here for us? Right,
okay. So the iGaming vertical, yes, you mentioned that there are a lot of pain points. Pain points for operators in that they are being more regulated. The regulators are coming down quite hard on them. They're pushing on them. They're imposing penalties and fines. The regulators don't really understand the space, so they're using, to coin a terminology, a sledgehammer to crack a walnut, and possibly even driving the online gaming space or vertical underground, so that players will start to look for unregulated sites to maybe get more bonuses, or operators are operating in an unregulated environment because they don't want to be adhere to all the rules and regulations. What the industry needs to do is come together and working with companies like Crucial Compliance that can embed these markers of harm in a player's journey to identify a player before they self-exclude. Because once they self-exclude, they have a problem. And the regulator wants to see intervention and prevention of gambling harms before that self-exclusion point. But there are many, many pain points within the vertical.
That is for sure. And yesterday, there was a press release coming out from nChain that announced that Crucial Compliance is integrating with Kensei, which is amazing news. And anyone that follows my social media knows that I was very excited about this. And so, Paul, so happy to have you here today so you can talk to us a bit about how the integration with Kensei is going to turbocharge the offering that you have that are going to help gambling operators with their responsible gambling initiatives. Can you elaborate a bit, please?
Yeah, of course. We're very excited as well, which is why we did it. We feel very fortunate. One of the biggest problems with the iGaming space is the pace that we move at. And there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions that go on, and there's a lot of change. People move in and off of platforms. People move in and off of service providers. And what that means is that an operator's data is often stored differently over the years. So when we start looking at the responsible gaming space and safer gambling, what we need to do is actually log that data forever, because at any time in the future, within 10 years, we're going to be requesting information about a player and what they did 10 years ago. And you can imagine how many lines of code that is. So by being able to work with a solution such as nChain, what we can do is into the back end of our system, we link it up through an API, and then we can stamp all key actions that are needed that will then be logged forever. So it really is game changing, because it means it doesn't matter what your company's called today or what your company's called tomorrow. It doesn't matter which regulator or whether it's a litigation. You'll always be able to get to the data that you need, and it will still be accurate. And that is key, because data integrity is what drives safer gambling. And if you don't have data integrity, for whatever reason, then you can't drive safer gambling in this industry.
Very good. Thank you, Paul. And Nick, also, I know you love talking about how Kensei can help with responsible gambling initiatives. So please, can you add to what Paul just said? Any other thoughts that you have?
Well, yeah, I can only add to what Paul has to say, in that, it is all about data integrity. it is all about the immutable ledger and the trusted corporate truth. So as soon as a mark of harm is triggered by any player, the interaction with that player and the operator all goes on chain. So as Paul was saying, you can refer back to that a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, so that it gives the operator some form of insurance policy that if they were to come up against litigation or anything along those lines or anything untoward, it protects them against reputational damage, it protects them against potential fines or penalties. But with Kensei, it also goes into the other sides of the business with regards to AML, source of funds, KYB, KYC, which is the stuff that company with a K can provide as well. So there's so much that Kensei can deliver to the iGaming vertical.
Amazing. And Peter, so talking of KYB, this is your thing. Can you please tell me about companies' integration with Kensei, because you've already done this? So I'd love to hear about that whole process. How did it go for you? Was it complicated? What was it like?
Sure. Yeah. I think, I don't know exactly where we were in the sort of development stage of Kensei. I think we were quite early. I know it certainly wasn't called Kensei when we started, because we suddenly started getting emails from our good friends at nChain talking about this Kensei thing. And at first the question was, well, what's that? We've no, it was actually the thing that we've been talking about all the time. But I think what we did have, we had some good input into how our use case, which is actually a relatively simple use case at the moment, might have guided the design and development. And that use case was a Chronicle part. So literally just the recording onto BSV of the API usage. Now that was, for us, integration was actually really, really simple. I mean, literally we amended our API slightly to allow people to use this service. And we just added some internal flows. I think looks like Paul's talking about, out to Kensei through the API that was provided. And, we did some hashing of the data, then we pass that over to one API call, we get a response. And then there's a few ancillary API calls to do sort of logistical things, give me a list of this and that sort of thing. But it was really, really simple. I mean, it's that simple. And we have some very, very good developers, but this was, a fairly trivial job. I think it maybe took us 1 or 2 days. Just to do the simple use case. I expect that when we go onto the digest and invoke parts of our platform, that things will become more complex because they are more complex use cases. But in all, I think that the work that nChain has done on the Kensei platform just made the whole taking away the worry of talking to a specific blockchain. Without something like that, or without something which acts as a bridge, everything is going to be different every time. Now, it's actually a funny analog of what we've actually done at company. We've written over 200 interfaces to the various global business registers. And, if you say there are 8 usable blockchains or ledgers at the moment, that would be 8 we have to write there. And there's just going to be more and more and more. So anything which takes away that level of I won't call it a problem, but anything which takes away that level of hassle that's just unnecessary is great for us. So yeah, I mean, we're not gaming specific here. We can be used by literally anybody who needs to do these sort of checks. And the thing, of course, is that those checks are becoming more and more needed by more and more industries and players. Players in the industry sense, not in the gaming sense, obviously. Regulation doesn't go away. I've never known red tape to be cut so far as it actually vanishes. It gets more and more. And I think we can say for sure with AML legislation specifically, it's going to get tighter and tighter and tighter and catch more and more and more people. And on the other side of that, the actual regulation, the checks to make sure you do these checks is going to become more and more onerous as well. So our goal, along with the guys at nChain, is to make this as easy to use as possible. And what that gives us, of course, is we get all the benefits of using blockchain, which in our specific instance is the ability to generate a secure audit chain of what's happened, for our clients to be able to prove that what they say happened did in fact happen without resorting to nonsense like log files and PDFs with timestamps written on them. And this isn't proof. This is just fluff. Anyone can make this stuff up. You just simply cannot do that with a blockchain. So it becomes proof. And we see it as a kind of super insurance at a very simple level. You may never get checked, but if it costs you a small amount to insure yourself against having that check, and knowing absolutely, not thinking, but knowing that you will be able to clear your name, your corporate name in this sense, if you were ever asked, and absolutely clear it in a manner which is unarguable, why wouldn't you do that? I don't know of any other class of technology that allows this level of proof to be generated. So we're very excited about it.
Very good, thank you. And what I think is so exciting here, especially for those in the online gambling space that may not be so familiar with blockchain, is that Peter and Paul, both of your companies are built using traditional technology, I guess you can say, and you've just plugged in to this, the Kenze, which is BSV blockchain powered, and all of a sudden you have this amazing functionality. So you're combining the two worlds together, and this is just where it gets really, really exciting, I think. And Paul, I know that, I mean, you have companies do KYB on you, you do KYB on people. You just have such a laborious process. It's a pain, it's expensive, it takes time. Can you elaborate on why you believe that the blockchain can really alleviate a lot of the pain points with KYB?
Yeah, when you start looking at the iGaming space, then what you have is multinational companies operating all around the world. One of the key things a lot of the companies have is affiliates. So you've got affiliates based all around the world in your markets. You don't necessarily know a lot about them. You may meet them once or twice. You have telephone calls with them. So, KYB is very important because you've got to know who you're dealing with, of course. You have to apply to the rules and regulations of every country you're operating in. So, to have robust KYB across your entire business is very important. When we talk about regulation in iGaming, most people think about the regulation about the customers. So it's the customer regulation. It's our players. It's how we treat them, looking at AML, looking at safer gambling and an RG. But in reality, it's a lot more than that. It's the way we operate. And, iGaming companies are truly international organizations. They've been set up that way. Most of them were kind of set up on a multi-country basis from day one. So you've got payment providers around the world. You've got affiliates around the world. You've even got team members around the world. So you have to do thorough KYB on the entire business if you want to be seen as a good player, because reputation is everything in the iGaming space. It's a very young industry. You don't want to lose your reputation. You have to do things right. So it's really critical that you get it right. And this kind of solutions we're talking about today are, in reality, revolutionary when we look at this industry and the space.
Amazing. Nick, I can see you nodding, and I know that you were in Amsterdam last week at an online gambling event talking with the delegates about blockchain tech and what it can do. Could you talk to us a bit about, for example, how company maybe could help online gambling industry professionals, and also just in general compliance issues with blockchain? How can the pain points be alleviated?
Yes, it's just basically, I'm just going to reiterate what both Peter and Paul have said, is that, it's paramount that, you've got the responsible gaming element, which is sort of like, I coin a phrase like the low-hanging fruit, which is tippy-tongue to protect the player first and foremost, to identify the player sooner in their player journey, that if they should start to exhibit, unsafe player behaviour, that we can intervene, the operator can intervene. And as soon as they intervene, everything is stored on chain and time stamped for that period for perpetuity. But on the same side of it, just sort of carrying on from what Paul was saying, it's very paramount that all the gaming operators, the PSPs, all their KYB that they're conducting at the moment is manual. So you've got a department of people that are requesting documentation and information about UBOs, about company formations. It's all manually done, and it's archaic. And where is this information stored? Who has the keys to it? Who has the passwords? You know, which data warehouse is it stored on? Which Excel spreadsheet? Who knows? You know, so bringing it all together under, you know, and logging it on the chain, the immutable ledger, trusted source of truth, it's the way forward. It simply is. You know, there's no better way to put it. So if people aren't starting to embrace it, they are starting to listen now, because it's always within the gaming space. You mentioned the word blockchain, and everyone goes, oh, crypto. And you've got to try and educate them to the other side. So we're going through this education process of educating the industry, the vertical, to that there is a utility application. It can be used for something. So what can your other chains be used for? And are they cost effective? Because this one is.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Nick, that when you say blockchain, still within the online gambling space, people think crypto, they think I'm talking about regulators, operators, players, everyone. And so a lot of professionals are a bit nervous to get involved, but in reality, it's doing so much to help our space. So I'm going to go back to you, Nick, again, because I know you've had conversations with regulators in the online gambling space about blockchain, and some regulators that really were wary at first, but they've been educated now. Tell me what the regulators are thinking about a technology such as Kenzei's. Are they okay with that? Are they nervous about it? What do they think about something like that?
Oh, well, to answer that, yeah, I have had conversations with various regulators dotted around the globe, and yeah, again, once I dispel that, you know, that this isn't crypto, this isn't processing, we're not playing around with people's money. What we're doing is we're using it as a utility application. And the majority, well, all regulators that I've spoken to are saying that if we're using a progressive technology to enhance and protect the player's experience, they're okay with it, because we're not using it for processing. We're not trying to get money in or money out. You know, we don't acquire new players by taking their BTC or their Ethereum into the site, converting it into fiat, and allowing them to wager. What we're doing is we're using it for benefiting the player, and it's enabling the regulator to have access to that data. So the operator is becoming more transparent, which is what the regulators want. They want to see more transparency. So they have access to the data, and the data, which is, you know, is a source of truth because it can't be tampered with. It is immutable. And that's the big thing. Like everything else, it can be manipulated. Traditional data can be manipulated. And if you were to go and you're looking at, you know, potentially picking up a substantial fine, and the UKGC has been throwing out very, very hefty fines to operators, that operator may be tempted to manipulate that data to their benefit, you know. But yeah, in a nutshell, the regulators are receptive to what we're doing and receptive to the messages that we're giving.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing news. And actually, Paul, I mean, you've been talking with regulators yourself about your integration with Kenzei. Can you tell us what their reaction has been?
Yeah, so after the initial confusion about what we're all doing, which does need education, like everything else in this space, what they've been is open to it, because what they want, as Nick was saying, is data integrity. And, you know, I've been working with companies, with the regulators on cases which have gone wrong. The company's been adamant it didn't, but their data, for whatever reason, is corrupted due to mergers, acquisitions, takeovers, changing platforms, all of which is regular. And therefore they can't prove it. So they've sat with multi-million-pound fines as a result of not having the correct data to prove their point. Now, you know, what we have to get to is a stage which is a fair playing field, whereby if a company does wrong, they should pay the fine, and you know, their job is to protect their players. But at the same time, if they do spend the money and protect their players, then there should be an irrefutable log that shows that they did their job, and that log needs to be acceptable. And at the moment, we've got a situation where some regulators will accept the data from online gaming companies, some won't. Some of these cases end up in litigation. And then will the litigating partners accept this data, or won't they? And it just isn't a level playing field for anybody out there. And that's not a good space to be in. So let's get innovative. Let's embrace N-Chain, and let's use Kenzei and get there with a great history of all the great work that the companies are now doing to make the world better.
Amazing, amazing. And Peter, while I realize you're not involved with the gambling industry directly just yet, just wondering along your journey of integrating with Kenzie, if you've had any issues with regulators or any thoughts on regulators and the use of blockchain tech.
Yeah, there's actually two things. One, I'd just quickly like to come back to Paul's mention about affiliates. And affiliates are a classic money laundering vehicle, fake affiliates. And so there's clearly a big use for us in that space, within the AML space, within the industry. But when we came up with the concept, we started talking to various regulators, and we said, look, if we do this and our users are putting all this on chain, and we can give you basically a single link, a single hex number, which gives you all the proof you need, would you go for that? And they all said yes. Of course, you'd be crazy not to say yes. Yeah. But then the way we see this is actually more of an infrastructural role, where we would like them to be in on the chain as well, not just looking at the chain, but actually be part of it. So then they could say, okay, I see what you're doing here. And we could make the code work so that actually you can get pre-regulation. So you could do your KYB request as part of a transaction state, and actually you could then have the regulator notified instantly, or even be part as a sort of a gateway for that if you want to, so that there's absolutely no risk of being regulated afterwards and not wondering, because the regulator's already seen it, they've already approved it, they know all about it. And when you go down that path to make it useful for them, not just useful for them to regulate after the fact, but actually make them more involved in the whole process, that's when they really sit up and go, oh, hang on, this sounds really interesting, and they're interested. Obviously, there's a lot of education, as Nick was saying, involved here, because this is pretty complex stuff, and they're not experts in every single part of their own industry in some cases. So there's a lot of work to be done, but they're very receptive, I think, because they know that their jobs are just going to get harder and harder and harder. And anything that makes their lives easier has to be a good thing as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Peter. And we're down to just a little over 2 minutes. So I wanted to close out the panel by having each of you share some closing thoughts with our audience today, and on why blockchain and compliance is such a perfect fit, and how the BSV blockchain is going to really power this forward. So Nick, I'm going to start with you on that.
Well, it's really simple. Blockchain BSV is a cost-effective, transparent way for companies to, provide that transparency to their audience, whether it be in the financial services sector, whether it be in the gaming sector, whether it be in any sector. It is a must. It's a must-have, in my personal opinion. It's here to stay.
Very good. And Paul?
Yeah, so when we start looking at regulation and player protection, it's not just good enough to do it. You need to be able to prove you've done it, and you need to be able to prove to everybody in your organization as well that you've done it. So, this really does revolutionize the ability to be able to prove your point, to prove you're doing it, and to be a good member of society by doing the player protection and doing the work that we should be doing for our customers. So if you want to protect customers, we also have to log it and we have to keep it. So using tools like Crucial Player Protection through the blockchain just works absolutely seamlessly. And that's what we need. It's ease of access, and it's a good, basis for the future.
Very good. Thank you so much. And Peter?
For me, it's all about proof. Proof is a key thing, but proof is all well and good, but it has to be fast, it has to be cheap, and it has to be absolutely foolproof. If you can get proof with those three things, that's the perfect thing. And I believe that BSV can do that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's about time. Enjoy, everybody.
Data is double-edged. Wield it well and build your place in tomorrow. But trust it blindly and risk watching your progress crumble. Because much of the data we rely upon isn't reliable at all. At nChain, we believe in data, but we put no faith in it. Instead, we build tools that enable enterprises to trust the data upon which they rely. nChain. Data without question.
Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin wallet, blockchain, stablecoins, MetaNet, the evolution of money. Everybody is talking about Bitcoin today, but what exactly is it? Learn the basics from experts. Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Bitcoin 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.